Good evening. Once again, Kenny Jacobs from Bloomington, Illinois. I'm going to do another video this evening talking about current events as it relates to Bible prophecy. And this one should actually be, and I've been saying this some lately, and it still turns out to be a long video, but this one actually should be short. I'm just going to touch base on a couple of events or news stories and just kind of point out how even what seems like some of the smallest news stories out there right now are all parts of the puzzle. All the puzzle pieces of the end times are coming together now at a rapid pace. And there's just a couple of interesting stories I want to touch on. One of them is a really, really long, detailed article that I'm just going to highlight a little bit of to talk about an alliance that's building and just a few other minor things. But first of all, I want to give you a little scriptural background for the first news story. So I'm in Matthew chapter 24, and in verse 3 it says, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them," I'm going to skip down to verse 6, he says, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." Well, this first report that I want to do tonight is an earthquake report. I'm just going to real quickly touch on something that's absolutely amazing to me. As I've said in the past, I've been tracking the earthquakes for the past year. A year ago, there were 60 or 70 earthquakes a day, which back then seemed like a lot. Now, and if you talk about 2.0s and higher, there's around 200 or so a day around the world now. It's gone from 60 to about 200 a day. But what I've really noticed lately is not only are they going up every week in numbers, but the number of earthquakes that are 4.0 and higher are also going up an incredible amount. And this is January 5th, and I actually haven't checked it in the last few hours, so no doubt it's changed since I checked it earlier today. But when I checked it, since January 1st till about 4 o'clock January 5th, there were 91 earthquakes around the world of 4.0 or higher. That is absolutely incredible. 91 earthquakes, 4.1 or higher, just since January 1st, and we're not all the way through January 5th right now. So roughly 4 days, though, 91 earthquakes of 4.0 or higher. If I can get this app to pull up real quick, I'm going to go just today, real quick, and look at it again. 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16 today of 4.0 or higher. There were actually more than that on the app, but some of them are kind of probably the same earthquake in slightly different locations, so I didn't count those. There was a 4.0 in Idaho and a 3.6 in Idaho. There's a 3.9 in Nevada. These ones I didn't even count. A 3.9 in Nevada, a 3.5 in Kansas, another 3.7 in Idaho. But there's also a 5.5 in the South Pacific Ocean. Another 3.9, again, didn't count this among the 16. A 3.9 in Nevada, a 3.7 in Oklahoma, and a 5.1 in Solomon Sea. This is all just today. The number of earthquakes is going up dramatically, and again, in the 4.0 and up, it's amazing how many more of them there are every single day, and are covering the entire globe. But I will say the United States has been getting quite a few all along the West Coast. Oregon, Nevada, California obviously always gets a bunch of them. But Nevada and Oregon as well. Now Idaho and Oklahoma. Texas lately has been getting quite a few. We'll keep an eye on it, but that's one of the major signs that Jesus said to look for in the last days. Speaking of that, I mean, again, the whole reason I do this channel is to wake people up, show them how the current events tie directly to the Word of God and Bible prophecy, and how all of the signs are coming together. Matthew refers to it as the beginning of sorrows. It's also referred to as birth pangs. And when a woman is in labor, obviously the birth pains, the contractions get closer together and more intense the closer the birth comes. And these signs are doing the exact same thing, exactly like it was described in the Bible. And there are so many people who mock and scoff and laugh at people like me who tell them that we're living in the last days, that Jesus Christ is going to return soon. They just refuse to open their eyes and refuse to see the truth. And so again, I'm going to continue to sound the alarm and pray that people will wake up while there's still time, because it's getting really, really short. And again, like I said, today I'm just going to touch on a few ideas and keep this pretty short. But first news story, I wouldn't be me if I didn't notice this, I guess, and so I'm going to mention it. It's really probably nothing at all, but it's just interesting and ironic, that's all. So I'm going to pull it up here and talk about it real quick. Pope Francis elected, I think 14 or 15 new cardinals, and this is out of MSNBC. Again, I was raised Catholic. I've never heard of the cardinals being referred to as princes or princes of the church. But this article, they're referred to as princes, and the headline is, Pope Francis names diverse new princes of the church. And it says, once again, breaking from tradition, Pope Francis on Sunday announced 15 new cardinals chosen from nations far and wide, including Ethiopia, Vietnam, Mexico, Tonga, and Myanmar. It says the new princes of the church were selected from 14 diverse countries, marking another big move for inclusion within the Catholic Church. Francis declared that the churchmen came from every continent, according to a statement from the Vatican. And then there's a related story here. It says Pope Francis demotes an anti-gay bishop. But the reason this story caught my eye, and again, it's probably nothing, and it's just interesting to me. Pretty much all of my free time is taken up with studying Bible prophecy and current events. And this, like I said, when I saw that headline with the word prince, it just caught my eye, because Daniel chapter 9 verse 26 says, after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And the people of the prince that come, that will destroy the city and the sanctuary, that's the Roman Empire, which destroyed Jerusalem in AD 70, and there is a revived Roman Empire right now, the European Union. I believe the United Nations is part of that as well, but the European Union, and they're rising now to more. Let's just say they're becoming more involved in the peace agreement, the covenant with many of Daniel 9:27. I believe the Antichrist is going to come out of this revived Roman Empire, and obviously Rome and Italy and Vatican City and the Pope would certainly be part of that. And so when I saw that headline. That he elected, it says diverse new princes of the church. Right away I thought of Daniel 9:26, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. And like I said, that wouldn't be me if I didn't mention that in the video, just to keep you guys interested and show you just how ironic some of these news stories actually are. But there's some more, just two more stories that today I want to touch on that revolve around the European Union as well as an alignment of nations that is very prophetic. Ezekiel 38 and 39 talks about the war of Gog and Magog, and the nations involved in that war are Russia, Persia, which now is known as Iran, and Turkey. Are three of those nations, along with Ethiopia and Libya. But again, it's very interesting because those three nations have not been allies and have not been aligned. And Turkey is actually a NATO member, but they're now forming an alliance with Russia and Iran. And so that's exactly what has to happen in the last days for the war of Ezekiel 38 to occur. Recently, Israel has found a lot of oil and natural gas, which is something that Turkey and Russia desperately need, as well as the European Union. And there's a battle forming about a pipeline and who's going to get who's going to be dealing with Israel over this, and what's going to happen with this natural gas and oil. And so let me go to the story. This story is really, really long, and I just want to highlight a couple of interesting parts of this article. And interestingly enough, this is out of a website called Global Research. It's called the Center for Research on Globalization. And if you follow my channel at all, I'm constantly talking about the New World Order, the one world government, one world religion, and one world monetary system. In other words, the globalization of the government. And this article is out of Global Research. And the headline, Russia and Turkey's gas pipeline deal, implications for the European Union. Now, again, Ezekiel 38-39 make it clear that Russia, Turkey, and Iran will come up against Israel in the last days. So this article starts off and it says, Iran was always looking for rapprochement with Turkey. Iran wanted to be a part of Nabucco and made the offer as early as 2009 before the outbreak of hostilities. And now it looks like they will have that opportunity. Indeed, Erdogan, who is the Prime Minister of Turkey, told a gathering of Nabucco partner countries and regional countries in that same year which included Iraq and Georgia, we desire Iranian gas to be included in Nabucco when conditions allow. Okay, now, so here we have Turkey and Iran being mentioned together. And again, I got to find certain areas of this. This is a very interesting article. It says what the U.S. offered instead to Turkey was that it should throw its international reputation into the wind and facilitate an ultimately failed attempt to make regime change in Syria. Barack Hussein Obama has made, it's not kept it a secret that he really wants to oust Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And Isaiah 17:1 says, the burden of Damascus, behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city. It shall be a ruinous heap. And Russia and Syria are allies. But the civil war has been going on now. ISIS is moving toward Damascus. It's going to be interesting to see how much longer it's going to be before Isaiah 17:1 comes to pass. But let me scroll down here because there's just a couple of quotes out of this article I really want to share. In fact, let me scroll way down here. This is a really long article. It gets into the European Union a little bit and the Monroe Doctrine. There's a lot of history in this article. It says Europe, like Bulgaria, was also thinking that it had options, which the Russian-Turkish deal actually makes an end run around. So again, we've got Russia and Turkey kind of getting in the way of the European Union's plans right now, and both, of course, everybody needs oil and natural gas. It says the Nabucco line was to be a Turkish project, but on the European side involved a number of the same firms that would later go over to the South Stream project. But what's interesting here is it says, now there is a new reality. The situation has reversed. It says, Iran and Turkey relations have warmed, and so have Russian-Turkish relations. So again, Iran and Turkey are becoming, better, improving their relationship and are joining forces. And Russia certainly is allies with Iran, and they're working with Iran on their nuclear program. And all three are aligning. But then it says, if it is also to involve Israel, it may be possible to place some conditions on Israel. Besides ending its war against Syria and ending its rhetoric on Iran, it could also include the recognition of Palestine and profit sharing with Palestine. It says this may mean that if Israel wants to expand their market, it may need to work through its Netanyahu disaster period and elect a labor government with center-right instead of far-right social and economic policy and policy on Palestine. All of this is entirely speculative, but Israel needs this project more than the other parties need Israel. It says Israel has reached a critical place and has some difficult decisions to make. It says now that Russia and Turkey have announced to the world that they will not have their interests placed at odds with each other through the manipulation of the U.S., EU, and Israel, we can see a geopolitical shift in the making of tectonic proportions. Interestingly enough, I just started this video today talking about earthquakes, and then this article refers to a geopolitical shift of tectonic proportions. But again, it pits Russia and Turkey and Iran against the United States, the EU, and Israel. We can certainly see the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war, the war of Gog and Magog, taking shape. Here it says, Europe must understand that the Balkans can only be a place where either both EU, Russia, and Turkey have an interest, or that it will be without Europe, with only Russia and Turkey having an interest. So I just wanted to point that out, that the world situation now is aligning in a way that is putting Iran and Turkey and Russia together right at the time that it looks like the covenant with many is going to be confirmed. And then once Israel is at peace, after a peace agreement, Ezekiel 38 goes into detail on that. It says, in fact, let me read a little bit of that real quick. Ezekiel 38. God says He's going to put hooks in their jaws of Russia, bring them out of the parts of the north to attack Israel. And this natural gas and oil that Israel has, and Russia's economy is a mess with all the sanctions. That could certainly be the hook in the jaws, it says. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, and all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, Gomer and all of his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. There's a major war coming where all these people come up against Israel, and God says, I will turn thee back and put hooks into your jaws and bring thee forth with your army up against Israel. Well, let's look at another news story about the EU. This one's a little easier to follow. This is out of the Arutz Sheva today. Liberman, the EU is Israel's biggest challenge. Now again, I've been saying for a long time that even though the United States and Barack Obama and John Kerry have been kind of trying to get the covenant with many, they've been trying to broker the peace deal, the peace talks between the Palestinians and Israel, that I thought that the European Union ultimately would step up and that they would get more involved in that. And this headline says, Liberman says the Oslo Accords status quo have both collapsed, notes EU is crucial for Israel's economic interests. It says that working with the European Union is Israel's main challenge today. The Oslo Accords have collapsed, referring to the series of unilateral moves the Palestinian Authority has taken against Israel. These include forming a pact with Hamas in April and since applying to the UN, submitting a failed draft resolution for a Palestinian state, and applying to the International Criminal Court. Our biggest challenge is not the Palestinian Authority and the Arab states, but Western countries, Liberman said. The best example here is the UN Security Council vote. Of its members, 3 EU countries participated in the vote, and 2 voted with the Palestinians, France and Luxembourg. And 1 country, Britain, had abstained. Liberman stressed that Europe's views are also important for Israel's economic interests. In terms of Israel's exports, Western Europe has the big market. We will have to deal with Western Europe with the EU. He added that the EU's attitudes toward Israel are a great injustice. Is that right? It's not, he said. There's a lot of injustice. Syria killed 76,000, 15 soldiers in Iraq. But we need to use the saying, do not be just, be right, be smart. The fact that we are right here is no doubt. The question is how we deal with it. Liberman's comments surfaced days after the European Union's policy chief, Federica Mogherini, urged both sides to return to the negotiating table following the failed draft resolution. The EU renews its call for both parties to resume negotiations urgently and to refrain from any further action undermining the viability of the two-state solution, Mogherini said. The European Union will promote and support now, more than ever, efforts to achieve a lasting peace based on this two-state vision together with international partners, including in the region, she stressed. Again, international parties and a regional agreement. Let's go to Daniel 9:27 again, real quick. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. He is the Antichrist. The covenant with many is what they're working on right now. The peace agreement in Israel, which will probably be based on the Arab Peace Initiative, and will include all the so-called 57 Muslim states, and all the moderate Muslim states, so to speak, along with the EU. And I'll tell you, it's time to wake up, people. All the end time events, all the pieces are coming together so fast. All right, now I just want to touch on one other article, and I actually have an interesting take on this. The main part of the article is not even what I'm going to talk about, but Governor Mike Huckabee, has decided to run for president again in 2016. And interestingly enough, this is out of Media Matters for America. Here's a headline. Mike Huckabee sold out to his fans, to a quack doctor, conspiracy theorists, and financial fraudsters. It doesn't take long for the liberal media to try to attack any conservative who's going to run for president. He's just now announced it, and here we go. It's already started. But the interesting thing about this article that I really want to touch on is the part where they talk about conspiracy theorists. It says Mike Huckabee, who is parting ways with Fox News, it's because he's entering the race. It says that has profited from renting his Fox promoted MikeHuckabee.com email list to a wide range of shady characters, including a medical quack claiming Alzheimer's disease cures, a for-sale stock pundit that was fired from Fox, a financial firm that was fined by the government for engaging in deliberate fraud, and a survival food company that profits off readers' fears of being herded into Fema camps. First of all, the liberal media didn't even want to check on Barack Hussein Obama's birth certificate. they certainly seem to give him a pass on being a member of Jeremiah Wright's church and being friends with Bill Ayers, and I could go on and on and on and on and on about that. However, they immediately jump on Mike Huckabee the minute he decides to get into the race. But I want to touch on the fact that they're talking about conspiracy theorists and talking about fears of being herded into FEMA camps, as if we're making this stuff up or crazy for telling you about FEMA camps. And I'm going to tell you that they are absolutely 100% real. And I challenge any one of you out there that wants to laugh and scoff and mock and say that it would never happen, and that we're crazy and it's a crazy conspiracy theory, to look into it yourself. Really research several things. I challenge you to research FEMA camps, Rex 84, which stands for Readiness Exercise 1984, fusion centers, NSA data collection. Look at the NSA facility out in Utah with these supercomputers. DHS, which is the Department of Homeland Security, which, by the way, after 9/11, FEMA became a part of the Department of Homeland Security. And Agenda 21. And while you're looking at Agenda 21, I want you to look at what Pope Francis is promoting right now with sustainable development. So is the United Nations, and Agenda 21 is the United Nations program. And see how the United Nations and the Pope and European Union and Barack Hussein Obama are all promoting all these same ideas, working toward the New World Order. And FEMA camps, without a doubt, are real. And I want to pull up an old article. I did a video about this earlier in the year. Because they're not even hiding it anymore. And still people want to say, no, you're crazy. Those don't exist. It would never happen. This is out of the Washington Examiner, and the headline reads, Justice Antonin Scalia says World War II internment-style camps could happen again. And it just froze. Hold on a minute. I need to pull it back up. He's telling you that they've happened before and they're going to happen again. And I want to get to one specific quote. Come on. Why is it frozen? I just want to read one specific quote from this because, again, they're telling you flat out it's going to happen. It says, Justice Scalia predicts that the Supreme Court will eventually authorize another wartime abuse of civil rights, such as the internment camps for Japanese Americans during World War II. It's already happened here before. And who would have thought that the Holocaust and what happened to the Jewish people could ever happen? And it did. There's no reason to think it can't happen here in the United States. Especially when Justice of the Supreme Court's telling you it's going to happen. He says, and I quote here, he says, you are kidding yourself if you think the same thing will not happen again. That is from Justice Scalia. I'm going to read that quote again. You are kidding yourself if you think the same thing will not happen again. And if you look at the Patriot Act and all the new the laws and executive orders that Barack Hussein Obama has signed, and he can now detain any American that he believes is a threat to national security without cause, without a trial, for as long as he deems necessary. He loves to kill people with drones, and he's killed Americans on foreign land in other countries with drones. I won't be surprised if someday down the road they kill American citizens on American soil here in the United States with drones, if they think you are a threat to the government. And the people that they think are the biggest threat to the government right now are evangelical Christians. And anybody that seems to think that, even though they're living in America, that the people living in America think that they actually have constitutional rights. Those are the people that they're the most worried about. You would think they'd be worried about ISIS coming through the border of Mexico. You would think they'd be worried about things like that and terrorism. But if you look at their watch list, they don't even talk about terrorism. They talk about domestic issues. People who have Ron Paul bumper stickers. People that belong to the Tea Party. The IRS is obviously been targeting people like the Tea Party and Christian organizations and conservatives. If you think you have rights and you're willing to, if they think you're going to stand up to them, that's who they're worried about. That's what Readiness Exercise 84 is ultimately going to be for and used for. And the FEMA camps are real. They're staffed, and they're just waiting for the right. I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now. The right crisis. The right crisis to occur, whether it be a false flag terrorist attack, economic collapse, a natural disaster, just more civil unrest due to another grand jury decision people don't like or something, the racial tension that we have around the country right now. They've got a million excuses right now that they could use to institute martial law and start rounding people up. And without a doubt, and I've said this several times, I'm going to say it again, Barack Hussein Obama, I really believe, is the last president of the United States. And he will suspend the Constitution at some point. Through all the chaos that's going on, it's just going to get worse. And especially with 2015, he knows he's only got a couple of years left in his term. He's going to lame duck. He's got a Congress and a House that he's just not going to want to deal with. It's led by the GOP, and he's going to be vetoing and using his pen and executive orders. And it's going to get really, really interesting. But it's just, I had to pull it up because, they're already on Mike Huckabee, and they're talking about crazy conspiracy theorists who believe in FEMA camps. And I wanted to point out that a Supreme Court justice says, you are kidding yourself if you think the same thing will not happen again, referring to internment camps that were used for Japanese Americans during World War II, but will be used for conservatives, for Christians, and for people that they think are a threat to the government because they won't just roll over and allow the government to take away all of their rights. All the signs are here that Jesus told us to look for, and we can see the one world government and the one world religion forming right before our very eyes. We can see the major wars, the Psalm 83 war, the Gog and Magog war. We can see what's going on with Iran trying to build a nuclear weapon, with Syria. Everything's going on right now. It's time to make sure you're ready. Get your head out of the sand if you're still asleep. Time is very, very short, and if you do not know that you're saved, today is the day of salvation. There is salvation in one person, one name, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the Messiah. For God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life. All who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. And Jesus Christ Himself said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. He died for you. He rose from the dead to prove Himself that He is God. He conquered sin and death, rose again, and He is going to come back. He's going to take His church. He's going to resurrect the dead in Christ. He's going to change the people who are still alive and remain. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, you will be changed. If you are born again, if you are saved, you will be changed immediately into a resurrected, eternal body that will never know pain or sin or death or hunger or struggle ever again. But you must come to Jesus Christ. And I know that that's a message you don't hear anymore. Sadly, it's a message that the world doesn't want to hear. And quite frankly, if things continue on the way they are and the rapture doesn't occur right away, me sitting here on the internet right now telling you Jesus is the only way, and I will continue to do that. Quite frankly, will probably get me tossed into a FEMA camp someday, but that's fine. That's fine. I will proclaim the name of Jesus as long as I possibly can until they shut me up or Jesus calls me home. And Time is short, guys. Keep looking up. God bless everyone.